Coming up, a look at the woman picked to run the Biden administration's disinformation board. Republicans are calling her the Mary Poppins of disinformation. Stay with us. In our politics lead, the Department of Homeland Security's new Disinformation Governance Board has set off a wave of criticism from conservatives. Critics are worried the new board, created in part to stem the flow of disinformation about the border, will police American speech. And the board's executive director, Nina Jankowicz, has proved to be a prime target of the critics' wrath, both because of her partisanship and because of her social media presence. CNN's Tom Foreman shows us now why Republicans are calling her the Mary Poppins of disinformation.
Lies about a lost election, quack COVID cures, immigration. Homeland Security wants to identify dangerous misinformation, but Republicans are calling the person leading that effort, Nina Jankowicz, a partisan political hack.
The credibility of this board is shot already by the fact they appointed this woman, and they knew it.
What's feeding their fury? Just watch.
When Rudy Giuliani shared bad intel from Ukraine, or when TikTok influencers say COVID can cause pain, they're laundering disinfo, and we really should take note and not support their lies with our wallet, voice, or vote.
That TikTok parody and past tweets from Jankowicz have alarmed some on the right who fear she might use her new office to limit their free speech, despite Homeland Security saying it will serve no such role.
Clearly where this is headed is they are going to label conservative thought as extremist thought or as disinformation.
What they're doing is exacerbating those pre-existing misgivings in society.
Jankowicz dismisses those claims, and she does have extensive experience in the field, studying it for years, writing a book about it.
First of all, I like to say we all need to be practicing informational distancing right now in addition to social distancing.
Furthermore, in the wake of attempts by Russians to meddle in past U.S. elections and fear they'll do the same this time around, in addition to spreading general misinformation, Jankowicz's new boss insists political posturing is not on the agenda.
The Disinformation Board addresses disinformation that imperils the safety and security of our homeland.
Still, critics say the board and Jankowicz's appointment are overreaches, the kind even she was skeptical of when Donald Trump was in office and attacking what he called fake news.
I would never want to see our executive branch have that sort of power.
The secretary is still standing by her, saying, look, she's going to have no enforcement capabilities. And by the way, the agency points out this effort really started under the Trump administration. Nonetheless, Jake, you look at that video, you look at her tweets, and on the right, where they're just all aflame over censorship and cancel culture, the alarm bells are ringing.
All right, Tom Foreman, thanks so much. Let's discuss with our panel. Madam Mayor, let me start with you. Conservative radio host Eric Erickson tweeted about this controversy. He said, quote, so the new head of the Disinformation Board thought the Hunter Biden story was disinformation and believed the Steele dossier. Precedent matters, y'all. When the next president puts Marjorie Taylor Greene in charge of that office, y'all can't complain. What do you think?
Well, it's misinformation about the Disinformation Board. What the secretary has said is that the rollout could have been better. I believe he announced it during a budget hearing. And there is an opportunity for a reset here. One, I think we have to know exactly what this board will do. What we do know is that it won't have authority. It's more of an advisory board, my understanding, within DHS. And it's to address some very real issues. Address issues related to migration, information, misinformation, like we saw when we had the Haitian migrants trying to cross the Mexican border. Also, misinformation coming out of Russia during this campaign season. So the work is going to be important. I think now it's incumbent for us to all understand exactly how the board will work. But I don't think that there's anything to fear.
And Ryan, my colleague Dana Bash asked the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, Alejandro Mayorkas, about this yesterday. Take a listen.
Those criticisms are precisely the opposite of what this small working group within the Department of Homeland Security will do. And I think we probably could have done a better job of communicating what it does and does not do.
Will American citizens be monitored?
No. The board does not have any operational authority or capability.
So we should note DHS initially said the board would focus on countering disinformation coming from Russia ahead of the midterms and from human smugglers targeting migrants on the U.S.-Mexico border. What do you think of all this?
Well, I think he's right. They could have done a better job explaining it. And I think all of the theater around the leader of it is, I think, to your point, Mayor, it's better to focus on what this board is actually supposed to do. And in that very same interview, and I watched it, when he went on to explain what it would do, the best he could really come up with was best practices, which is a bit of a vacuous term. And he mentioned that the department, both under this administration and the previous administration, has been engaged in this work anyway, which raises the question why the board in the first place. And so I'm not suggesting the board doesn't have an important role to play, but I do think when you roll it out that way, and when you sort of sidestep the question or answer it very quickly whether you'll be monitoring U.S. citizens, when that's obviously people's biggest concern, that's also a problem, especially when the department issued a national terrorism advisory bulletin just a couple of months ago saying it's not just foreign misinformation, it's domestic that we're concerned about. And so that's an obvious question to answer, which I think you probably should have spent some time on. So when you're digging yourself out of a hole, it's always harder, but it doesn't suggest that the board can't serve a useful purpose.
And Casey, Republicans are specifically criticizing the woman who's going to head this office, Nina Jankowicz, who, if you look at her tweets, I have to say, like, her reaction to Christopher Steele has been credulous, believing him, and a reaction to the Hunter Biden story. I mean, there does seem to be a partisan interpretation of various forms of information or disinformation.
I think when you're in this space, the challenge is that you really have to play error-free ball. And this is an incredibly loaded, difficult place to operate for the government. It's a critical function, right? We as Americans need to know when there is information that is wrong, that is intentionally misleading, that's coming from foreign adversaries, or if it is coming from domestic groups who have, violent agendas. That's a much touchier area, as you say, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable. If you're going to do it, you have to be perfect, right? It should be civil servants who are essentially very careful about their public personas. I mean, it really just, as you say, the messaging is bungled. I don't think that their choice of a leader of it has necessarily helped.
Republican Senator Rob Portman, Leanne, said of the board, quote, "I do not believe the United States government should turn the tools that we have used to assist our allies counter foreign adversaries onto the American people. Our focus should be on bad actors like Russia and China, not our own citizens." Is that your understanding of what the board's going to do?
It's not what Mayorkas says the board is going to do. He said it's not going to spy on Americans, but this is an opportunity for Republicans and conservatives. They are going to make a political issue out of this. My conservative sources say that this feeds into more distrust of institutions, of people in power. People, they say, are already afraid to say what they think. And so it plays into cancel culture as well. And so this is going to continue to be a political issue no matter how well they clean it up.